Hi, this is Donniel Hartman and Yossi Klein Halevi from the Shalom Hartman Institute. And this is, for heaven's sake, our special series, Israel at War. Today is day 30. And our theme for today is From the River to the Sea, Palestine Will Be Free. But before we talk about that, Yossi, you and I, our souls and our minds are in another place.
Yeah.
This podcast is dedicated to a young 23-year-old soldier, Yonadav Raz Levenstein, the grandson of our most beloved employee at the Hartman Institute. The first employee when my father started.
Really?
He was the first employee.
Wow.
And a month before his 93rd birthday, Chaim Solomon had to be at his grandson's funeral. And Yossi, you and I were both there. And our hearts are broken. I've been to many funerals in my life, family tragedies. This was one of the hardest funerals that I've ever been to. And the somberness of it and the sadness is sort of engulfing me right now. The tragedy of it. You know, I came to the funeral. I didn't know Yonadav personally, but I know that Chaim deserves something else. And at the funeral, the way the commander of Givati, the seasoned veteran, was crying to the brothers and to the sister, to the mother, to his wife, who he just married 2 months ago. It was heartbreaking. And in Israel, people are buried within a day. So you don't schedule a funeral and people schedule coming. You set the time. Everybody heard of his death either last night or this morning. And the funeral was at 10 o'clock. You just change your schedule, and thousands of people were there. It's from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free, and Yonadav died making sure that that's not going to be. How was it for you, Yossi?
The hardest thing for me was listening to his wife of 2 months and the fact that he was the youngest of 6 children. You know, we all have the youngest, and we know the youngest is somehow the most tender. And I was struck by a few things, by the way in which the soldiers there were crying, were hugging and kissing each other. And it's so different. We mentioned this in an earlier podcast. The culture now is so different from what it was in Israel's early Stoic years. But I had this very strange thought, a very disorienting thought, which is I felt with all of the devastation that everyone there, thousands of people, many of whom didn't know the family, there was also this sense of comfort that Yonadav didn't die helpless, bound, the way 1,000 Israeli civilians died on October 7th. And, in Israel, we say that there's nothing more unnatural than parents burying children. But what I feel October 7th did, and I felt that so strongly in the crowd today, was shift the emphasis to a greater tragedy, that Jews in the land of Israel do not die helplessly. And if you die defending the Jewish people in their land, that has some comfort. And I felt the extraordinary strength of the people delivering eulogies. His mother, she got through the eulogy. She was on the verge of breaking, but she didn't break. And his brothers who eulogized him. And everyone mentioned the same thing, that Yonadav loved the land of Israel. He was so deeply connected to Jewish history. And I came away with 2 things, Donniel: totally shattered and uplifted. and astonished at the strength that there is in this people. That's what I felt.
So let's find some inner strength and shift. The theme for today, which we picked in a conversation right before the funeral, the contrast is very stark. But part of the experience of Israelis, and maybe it pays for us to reiterate this, we're talking from an Israeli perspective here. We're not doing public relations, and we're not talking about all the challenges going on, and we will. There will be times, but very often, Yossi, you and I, we're going to share what we feel and where we are. But in the midst of all that we've been experiencing, there is this voice that is coming through in our news channels, in our feeds. It's not the voice of what are we going to do in Gaza at the end of the conflict. We'll have to talk about that. It's not about the evils of occupation, and we have to talk about that. It's not about the two-state solution, and we have to talk about that. It's about the wiping out of the state of Israel. From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. How, from October 7th, did we get to this?
Before October 7th, we always said this was a genocidal slogan, but there was something abstract in that critique. And certainly not everyone who chants from the river to the sea imagines that this is a genocidal vision. But something visceral shifted on October 7th. And I think this is what you're getting at, Donniel. That on October 7th, we saw a pre-enactment of what from the river to the sea would look like. Palestine will be free of Jews. It will be free of a Jewish presence, which Hamas has said to us all along, and they did it. And to continue chanting that slogan as if October 7th never happened means to me that people have now lost their innocent alibi. You can't chant that anymore and pretend you don't understand the implications of turning Jews, 7 million Jews, into a defenseless minority under Palestinian rule. And so something has shifted in the discourse. And when I hear that slogan now, I feel it viscerally. And I feel afraid. Not afraid that it's going to happen. I don't believe that it will. But I feel afraid that so many people in this world don't care about the obvious implications of what they're saying about the Jews. That really worries me. And it makes me afraid most of all, Donniel, truthfully, for Jews in the diaspora, because they're more vulnerable now than we are.
It's interesting when I hear the slogan, from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. There is a segment of those who announce it who simply want me dead. And now they have the ability to chant it without shame. They could chant it publicly. It's so interesting how certain words or slogans become mainstream. And when something becomes mainstream, and when enough people say it, it becomes legitimate. So there is that segment. For me, the vast majority of people who are chanting from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free, including, by the way, a small group of Jews, I don't think they're even thinking about Jewish death. And here I disagree with you a little bit. I hear what you're saying about how it touches you in light of October 7th. But I don't even think they're thinking about that. Just the core legitimacy of Israel is not just questioned, it's judged and determined to be no longer. We are no longer a legitimate state. And accompanied to that is the language of genocide. Once you are a country, you're not just an apartheid state, now you are a genocidal state. For a segment of the world, this demonization of Israel is remarkable. It's remarkable in light of October 7th for a different reason. Because, I hear the people debating our public relations stance. It's so, there was somebody on the news who was saying we need better public relations. We have to show more pictures of October 7th. Everybody's seen the pictures. It's not impacting people. But for us to look, what is it about our survival? What is it about our ability to conduct a war? What is it about our power that for a segment of the world, not that they want Jews dead, but Jewish sovereignty is a blight, is a moral blight in their universe. And October 7th didn't shift it, didn't move it, quite to the contrary. The October 7th, which activated our power, activated and magnified their disdain, their moral disdain for our power. And it's important to ask why that happened.
Look, if we're not a legitimate state, then we have no right to self-defense. And then any act of war on the part of Israel is a war crime by definition. Because by what right does a colonialist, apartheid, Jewish supremacist state have to defend itself? But I want to go back to something you said a moment ago about the accusation that Israel is committing genocide, because there's something here that I've been struggling to understand. How is it that at precisely the moment when we experienced a kind of mini genocide, that experience was immediately transferred to the Palestinians? And there's something here about how our story gets reappropriated that's very deep in the Jewish experience. Go back to pre-Holocaust Christianity and the idea of supersessionism, that the church is the new Israel, the real Israel. And we were displaced from our story. It's not our story anymore. And there's something in that pattern that's built in, I feel, that's unconsciously, of course, is reemerging at this moment. We're speechless. We're saying, well, wait a minute. Look what we just experienced. This was genocide. No, you're the genocidist. And the Palestinians are the innocent victims of genocide.
There is no doubt, and you're really putting the focus on a classic, repetitive anti-Semitic process.
Unconscious.
Which you, I appreciate that you see. When I see this, I think, you and I have for so long been involved in trying to explain Israel to Jews, try to explain Israel to Christians and Muslims and people around the world. And we have such a clear story, a story of a people who came home, a story of a partition plan which we accepted, which was rejected, a story of at any moment, every peace plan our country accepted and they said no. From immediately after the 6-Day War to Oslo, it's so clear to us that we have tried. But we could mention that story. It's not convincing anybody.
No.
So there's, part of our tradition teaches us that you have to be honest to your history and your story. But also, if the story is not, it just falls off people's shoulders as if it's like noise. Just like, by the way, the pictures of the victims of October, it's just noise. What is it that we're not understanding? And I think, and I want to say this, this is not context, this is not legitimization, none of the above. But it's something that I feel we need to say, because soon we're going to have to start talking about the day after. I think there is a price to be paid for the fact that for 15, 18, 20 years now, we have not put forth not a public relations campaign, but a serious discussion about how we as Israeli society view the future of the Palestinian people and their national entity. Nothing to do with Gaza, nothing to do with it. But there is, when I look at all those people marching, there's the anti-Semites, there's the radical Islam, there's the Palestinian nationalists, and then there's groups of well-meaning progressives, students, even Jews, who look at us, Yossi, and they simply see a state for whom power is not a means but an end. And when I hear it, I feel angry. I feel upset. What do you think? What do you think? You're talking about wiping me out. There is no, what we're going to be a beloved minority in what? We're going to be Lebanon? It basically is our death. But the people who are chanting it, what did we do? And part of what we're going to have to do is there's from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. There's nothing that we could say to these people that's going to convince them. There's no facts. There's no figures. There's a moral bankruptcy that's there. But what we have to think about is we still have major friends around the world, major friends and major allies. And what do we need to think about ourselves is a question that I think is relevant.
So, Donniel, I appreciate your distinction between two groups of critics. One group are demonizers. One group are those who really want to wipe us out. And for them, this isn't even political. It's actually cultural. The cultural camp that you identify with defines your politics. And so the facts don't matter. The narrative, it's all irrelevant. There's nothing we can say to those people. Their politics is defined by cultural necessity, the necessity of belonging to a particular camp. And you're right. There are many people who are to varying degrees our friends or neutral or wish us well and don't understand us anymore. And we are going to have that conversation. The question is when. This, for me, is not the time. And I know we're losing support because of that. But the only argument that I can make at this point, the only place I can really stand in and say, this is not about a two-state solution. This is about from the river to the sea. Hamas is not interested in a solution. Its entire history was an attempt to sabotage a solution. Now, I think that what you're saying is important to say as a kind of prelude for the future. In other words, we need to be saying now that, yes, we know that not all justice is on our side. And look, Donniel, I've been writing that in my pieces and getting some pretty serious pushback from Jews on the right. And I understand that, but I feel the need to reaffirm what a post-war vision would be like without going into the details. And so I'm with you, but cautiously.
Deep down, emotionally, you're not with me.
Emotionally? No, of course not.
It's
Of course not.
Our
No,
emotion.
are you there? Are you there emotionally?
Yeah.
Then that's a difference. Emotionally,
I emotionally, as I'm watching you, I hear
hard.
you.
It's so hard for me to say the words two-state solution right now.
I know. I'm not even talking about. If you noticed, I didn't even say those words.
Yeah.
But our theme for today was from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. First, our job was, what does it mean? What does that statement mean? And when you opened up and said, you know what that means? That's death. What does the statement mean? An innocuous statement is not innocuous. And mainstreaming that statement has deep significance. One of the questions that I ask is, in addition to what it means, is to recognize that it means different things. And when I hear people chanting it, I ask myself, how did we lose so many people? Some of them we lost for simple, pure anti-Semitism or nationalist, extremist ideology. Some we lost because all nation states somehow it connects to particular identity. So there's some that we didn't really lose them, we never had them. There's some, though, that we've lost. And you use the word unconscious anti-Semitism. I want us as a people, now, why did we lose? And to think that with a bunch of pictures you're going to reclaim, you're not going to. That for me, the river to the sea, Palestine will be free, forces me to ask myself, now, because I know we're harming ourselves. You said I can't do it. We're harming ourselves now, right now. Not amongst our enemies, amongst our friends. For too long, we chose to believe that we didn't have to talk about these questions. And as I hear the chants and I see the faces and I see the hatred and I see the naivete and I'm angry, I also ask, what do we have to learn from this is a relevant question. Since we emotionally disagree, Yossi, I want to give you the final words.
So I would again make a distinction between genuine friends and those who are out there chanting from the river to the sea. Those who have adopted that slogan are not our friends, and I don't feel morally beholden to them. I do feel morally beholden to our genuine friends who have real questions about how we got to this point, about where we're going from this point. We owe them answers. But I think that if they're genuine friends, they'll understand that right now, what we need to do is fight and win this war. And that's where most of us are. I think almost everyone in Israel is in that place now, including you, Donniel. And that's my takeaway from the funeral today. There'll be a time to resume that conversation. Right now, we're caught between grieving, shock, we're still in shock, and determination. That's where we need to be.
Yossi, my deepest commitment is to the well-being of Israel, to the well-being of the Jewish people. And that is so central to everything that I do and that you do. But who is it, Tom Friedman, who wrote this really interesting article about the six-front war? We talk about the front in Gaza, and we talk about the front in Hezbollah, and we speak about Iran, and then we speak about the worries about whether a new front will open in Judea and Samaria. And you wrote and spoke so beautifully about this is one of the first wars that we know how we're going in, but we don't know who our enemy is going to be at the end. When I hear from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free, we have to realize that it's not a public relations war that we're losing, that there's some things that we need to start talking about now because Israel's well-being is all that I care about. To win this war is not just in Gaza. We have to win it not only amongst our friends, but amongst people who are on the fence and trying to figure out where they are. How do we fight multiple wars simultaneously? How do we fight a war to win? How do we fight a war which legitimizes our right to self-defense? And how do we listen to the most hateful things and say, what could I learn from it? I don't know. Multiple front wars are very hard. They're hard militarily, but they're also hard emotionally. This is, for heaven's sake, Israel at War, day 30. For more ideas from the Shalom Hartman Institute about what's unfolding right now, sign up for our newsletter in the show notes or visit shalomhartman.org/Israel at War. Yonadav Raz Levenstein, Yehi Zichrecha Baruch. May your memory be a blessing. And to our dear Chaim Solomon, Mina Shamayim Tenucham. May the heavens give you some comfort.